Hello, everyone. This is Eastman Buckner, Coach Buckner, the coaching cowboy, and this is episode 2 of season 1. So, I want to touch a little bit more about the Clifton Strengths Assessment. So, let me tell you how I got interested in Clifton Strengths. So, one particular day I was gone to a bookstore, and I can't remember what particular book I went to look for. And as I was browsing through what is called the self-help section, I came across this book I'd never seen before, and it was entitled The Strength Finder 2.0. Discover Your Clifton Strengths. So I'm like, I've never heard of this before, so I started reading through it. And when I got to the end of the introduction, the author makes the following statement. He says, "You cannot be anything you want to be, but you can be a lot more of who you really are." I was sold. That statement, I think, should be on every billboard, website, you name it. Think about what he just said. You cannot be anything you want to be. Now, I know we tell people that. We tell our young children, you can be anything you want to be. Anything you put your mind to, you can be. I know that sounds encouraging. I know that sounds like it's uplifting. And I know it sounds motivational. And if the person has some natural talent in that area, then yes, that's possible. But for everybody, that's certainly not true. You cannot be anything you want to be. But what is true, what is 100% true for everyone, is that you can be a lot more of who you really are. And that's where people suffer. People suffer in this world because they don't know who they really are. And when they don't take full availability of their full potential, then that's when they languish. That's when they don't reach the peak of their God-given abilities, is because they don't know who they really are, or they are pursuing something that is not them. And they may have achieved a degree of success in that, but it's not really what they're gifted at doing. I often tell people that you can make a living doing a lot of things, but you can never reach mastery at anything that you do not already have a natural talent for. If you have a natural talent for something, then you can reach mastery over time. But if you don't have a natural talent for something, then you can work well at it, you can be successful at it, you can even make millions of dollars at it. But you'll never reach mastery because you did not have an inborn temperament or an inborn talent for that particular thing. I'm only saying this because I want us to understand that I'm not trying to deter people from going after their dreams or visions or goals. But what I am saying is that you need to work at that which you're naturally gifted at doing. And once you do that, then you'll find that in time you'll reach mastery. And once you reach mastery, people pay you very well to do what you do best. So, in looking at the Clifton Strength Assessment, there are 34 talent themes. 34 talent themes. And when I say talent theme, what it is that each one of these talent themes has its own title, but within those talent themes, there are certain traits within that. So 34 individual themes. Within those themes, there are several, sometimes 5 to 7 different traits that express that particular theme. So, but also there are 4 domains. There are 4 domains, 34 themes. And within those themes, there are some, I'd say 100 or so talents. So, or expressions of those talents. So let's talk about some of those themes right now. I think I shared last time that my top 5 talent themes are relator, achiever, earner, context, and individualization. So within those top 5, so each one of those has its own particular domain. So for learner, that falls in what we call the relationship building domain. There are 4 domains, by the way. I'm sorry. So there's an executive domain, and the executive domain is for people who, that's the domain that if you have talents within that domain, then that people, you know how to make things happen. You know how to get things done, all right? Then there's the influencing domain. The influential domain of people who know how to take charge, speak up, and make others, get heard and get heard themselves. They know how to influence people to get things done to accomplish missions. Then there's the relationship building theme. And it's pretty much what it says. It's people who connect better with people. They see individuals. They know how to motivate people. They know how to encourage people. They know how to include people. Those particular talents fall in that particular domain. And the last domain is called strategic thinking. And that domain is for people who are team-oriented. They always consider the whole. They know how to absorb and analyze information to make better decisions. So let's go back to the first one. So the executing domain has several themes within it, and I'll name them. So in the executing domain, there is achiever, arranger, belief, consistency, deliberative, discipline, focus, responsibility, and restorative. All of those themes are in the executing domain. Then there's the influencing domain. Within that domain, the talents achiever, command, communication, competition, maximizer, self-assurance, significance, and woo. And woo stands for winning others over. That's within the influencing domain. Then there's the relationship building domain. And within that domain, those talent themes are adaptability, connectiveness, developer, empathy, harmony, includer, individualization, positivity, and relator. So that's the relationship building domain. Within the strategic thinking domain, those talent themes are analytical, context, futuristic, ideation, input, intellection, learner, and strategic. So 34 talent themes. And your report, your Clifton Strengths report, gives you all 34 talent themes in ranked order, in order of intensity. So your top 5 to 10 are your most intense talents. Your bottom 10 are your least intense talents. Now, note, the ones that are at the bottom are not weaknesses. All right? They are themes that you do not do immediately naturally. Your top 5, you do those every day. You do those without thinking. They're like a reflex to you. Matter of fact, they're like breathing to you. Then you go from 6 to 10. It's something that you do quite often, maybe not every day. It's a normal for you to do those within a weekly basis, no problem. So understanding that, so you will get a report of all 34 of your themes. And in those 34 themes, once again, they're in ranked order. Now, so last time I think I talked about my context theme. So for me, one of my top 5 is context. So for me, context helps me see how everything is connected. Now, every day, I know I do this every day. So I am a political junkie as well. I love politics. I love understanding how society runs, how cities run, how we manage resources, how we manage global influences, all forms of politics. Now, but when I discuss politics with other people, I'm always saying, hey, but you know, so-and-so happened numerous years ago, that we're in this situation because of something happened numerous years ago. So I said that to say that that's natural for me. I do that every day in one way, shape, or form. Now, as it relates to relator, which is number 1 for me, that is when I communicate with people, I know them pretty deeply. I really break people down into sums of their parts. I really do. I break them down. Now, that sounds like a negative, but it's not. In other words, I can appreciate people because I know how to compartmentalize certain aspects of them. There are certain people that have certain traits about them that are normally so quirky, nobody cares for that. But I can separate that from their overwhelming talent that they have in a particular area. I can live with the quirkiness about this, and I can live with certain things that, get on most people's nerves. I can put that aside for the particular talents that they have or skill sets that they have that are valuable to the whole. So I'm saying this because I want us to understand that once you take the assessment, you don't really learn a lot about yourself in some regards. You learn that what you have been doing naturally are actually talents. That's step 1. But what you also learn is that what others have been doing is actually their natural talents. So I remember when we were taking the course, I was taking my certification to be a Gallup strength coach, and there was one of the students had empathy for number one. And as we would, some people just hate to talk in public. Some people, public speaking, they fear public speaking more than they fear death. But in this class, you had to stand before everyone and you had to, tell us what your top five were and what was one of the top five that you thought was your favorite. So I did that. But some people, it was natural for me to do that. I had no problem speaking in front of a group of people. But for some people, it was very difficult. You could tell they were super nervous. And every time someone would get up and they were nervous, you could tell that they were very, very nervous. This fellow other classmate, she would just, oh my God, is she going to be okay? I mean, she felt everything that everybody who felt bad, she felt bad. She could not help it. If they were nervous, she became nervous. She empathized with everyone. And if they were nervous and once they got finished, she would say, okay, you did a great job. You did really, really good. Now, I'm not trying to belittle that. I am simply saying, for me, I could never do that. That's not natural for me. That's not. For her, that was just something that was just like breathing for her. She felt what other people felt. So, what you also learn in Clifton Strengths is that other people have talents that you don't have, and they may get on your nerves. You may not like those things, but trust me, they have value just like yours have value. So I learned to appreciate everybody. I learned that everyone has value because everyone has talent. Everyone has value because everyone has talent. And once you realize that, you can work better with people. You can work with people. As a matter of fact, one of the things I learned, I was talking with a group of people the other day, and people claim that certain people are impatient. I'm one of those people that people say are impatient. Now, you can say on one hand that a person is impatient, and you can say that's a negative. But what you don't realize is that the other side of that coin is that they love efficiency. In other words, people who love things to be efficient are considered by others to be impatient. So you see, it's just how you look at it. People who love efficiency are seen by others as impatient. So yes, I'm impatient because I love efficiency. I hate it when people don't know how to yield into traffic. Oh my God, that gets on my nerves. I mean, you've got a lane, you've got a merge lane, use it. You know what I'm saying? So that's just one of the quirks that I have. Now, it's going to look like impatient to most people, but to me, it's that I just love efficiency. So, once again, you learn how to see people in a different light. Think about some of your friends, neighbors, coworkers, family members. Certain things that they may do that you're like, why are they always doing that? Because it's a talent to them. What's the other side of the coin? Okay, so I gave the example about if they seem impatient, it's because they're efficient. Okay, now I also there are people who are very analytical. They analyze everything, and sometimes I mean it's just a simple thing. Why are you analyzing that? That's a natural talent for them. They have to break things down. They have to study it out. They have to see the beginning, the end from the beginning. They have to map it out as they, before they even begin. But there are some people who can build a bridge and walk on it at the same time. They can build a little bit, walk out, build a little bit more, walk out. Some people have to wait for the bridge to be completely built before they'll set one foot on it. Both are correct based on who they are. So you learn to appreciate other people because they have talents that you don't have. So going back to empathy. So for me as a business owner, if I had several employees, which I do not, if I had several employees and let's say, for instance, there was some type of incident or somebody within my work group, my employee staff lost a loved one. Now, for me, I am not going to naturally send a card, call. I'm not naturally going to do that. And I know that sounds horrible, but it's true. I'm not naturally going to do that. But thank God there's somebody on the team that will say, hey, Coach Buckner, I think we should send this. I think we should get a card. I think we should send a basket or whatever. I think we should. I'm like, wow, yes, that's great. Perfect. Do that. Now, so it's not that I can't be empathetic. It's just that empathy is not a reflex for me. So in my talent DNA, which you will call it that, empathy is at number 30 for me. There's only 34 talent themes. So empathy is at 30, which means that is not something I have in high intensity. But that is something I can be. I can be empathetic, but it's not a reflex for me. But for some people, it is. So if you start an organization, give people the Clifton Strengths Assessment so you'll know who has certain themes that you can pull on, who has these natural reflexes in certain areas that you don't. Remember now, you don't try to work on the lower 10 as if you're trying to make those strengths rather than weaknesses. No, I do not work on my empathy. But thankfully, I have people around me who are more naturally empathetic than I am, so that can help me become empathetic when I need to be. And then I can take over because it's not like I can't do it. It's just that it's not going to be a natural reaction for me. So the Clifton Strengths Assessment really helps you see that. You learn to value yourself. You learn to value others. You learn to work well with others. You learn that certain idiosyncrasies that people have are just how God fashioned them. You don't have to take them as negative. And you can use those particular things, their talents, to your advantage. And as well that they can use your particular talents to their advantage. There's one thing that Stephen Covey said in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. During the beginning part, he says, the first thing you should do is to declare your independence from everybody. Declare your independence from everybody. You are an individual, and you need to make sure you acknowledge that there is no one like you. You are a totally unique individual, and you ought to declare your independence from everybody. But the second statement, he says, is just as powerful. And he says, after you've made that declaration, now you should make this declaration. You should declare your interdependence with everyone. Hear that. You should declare your interdependence with everyone. In other words, you are an individual, but you need other individuals. You need their independence in order to make it. You can't make it on your own. So, step 1, declare your independence from everybody. That you are totally unique and nobody's like you. But also declare your interdependence with everyone. In other words, you need other people to fully express who you are, to add value for who you are. So that's important. Declare your independence and then declare your interdependence. People need people. You need people. I need people. Now, personally, I've been known to do all kinds of stuff by myself. I am a control freak, so to speak, right? And I'll let me touch on this real quick. So in the second assessment that I talked about, which is we use at Buckner Life Coaching, is called the Temperament Analysis Profile by the Arnold Profile System. So the Temperament Analysis Profile, it measures your expressed and your wanted needs as it relates to control, inclusion, and affection. So when it came to the expression of my control, the scale is 0 to 9. So I expressed one way, and then I actually want control another way. I express 9. So in other words, the max. So if you talk with me, everybody who knows me, I try to control everything. I try to give advice all the time. So I'm a control freak. Now, I know that sounds negative, and no one likes to call themselves that, but I have embraced that. Now, remember now, this is how God fashioned me. He fashioned me to be good at control, and I actually am very good at control. I can walk into a situation where people have been dealing with something or, trying a particular challenge about something, and they're going back and forth, and I can walk into the room, and 5 minutes later, I can say, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to do this, that, this, that, this, that, this, that. And people are like, wow. Now, once again, I'm not bragging. I'm telling you that I'm gifted to do it. However, because I'm gifted to do it by God does not mean I have permission to do it. In other words, there are certain situations where God will tell me, say nothing, sit still. Yes, I know you see what's going on. I know you could change it, but say nothing. I want you to sit there. And I will sit there. Now, I'll probably be tapping my foot and I'll be burning up on the inside to say something, but I won't. Why? Because even though I have the ability, I have to put my ability under subjection. I have to answer to the Lord as to whether or not I should use the gift that He's given me in all situations and in all times. So that's important. Who you are, you have to know that there's right and left limits. You have to know that there's guardrails. So I express to the highest that I want control. However, when it comes to actually wanting control, I express at a 6. So in other words, I will tell you what I think you should do. But if you don't do it, I'm not hurt. You don't have to do it. And I'm not going to be lose sleepless nights because you didn't take my advice. Now, I feel I have to give it, but that doesn't mean I feel that you have to take it. In other words, I don't want control over anybody per se. I express that I do, but I truly don't want a great deal of control over everybody. I do like to see people succeed, and that's why I coach rather than counsel. I can counsel, but I love coaching because it's natural for me. It is natural for me to give out instructions. Once again, I'm saying that normally people wouldn't want to say that about themselves, but I've embraced who I am. I believe when I act according to how God designed me, and I understand that He has right and left limits to that, if I do that, then I am operating at the peak of my God-given ability. He is pleased, and I am effective. So that's why you should take both assessments, the Clifton Strengths Assessment and the Temperament Analysis Profile Assessment. Now, one other thing, the Temperament Profile Assessment, and I've shared a portion of mine, I consider that almost like medical information. You shouldn't share that with anybody. There are some things as it relates to inclusion and affection that I don't want anybody else to know as it relates to my temperament analysis profile. I'll never forget it it was 1999 when I actually took this, the temperament analysis profile the first time. And I was in seminary school at the time, and we had taken a course called creation therapy. So at the conclusion of the course, and this was back when they had you had to do the little bubble with the pencil, number 2 pencil. So the guy had this question, and we had to read the question, had a piece of paper with had all these, I think it's 39 or so questions. So I'm reading the questions, putting my answers in here. Well, my responses, not answers, my responses in. And I felt like some of the questions were the same question, like asked two or three different ways. But nevertheless, I finished it. And the guy took the little, the punch cards or whatever you want to call them upstairs. And he came back down with 6 sheets of paper. One was a cover sheet. The second was a little overview. And then the rest of them were each area about who I am as it relates to control, and then several bullet points about that. Inclusion, several bullet points about that. And then affection, and several bullet points about that. And I read that assessment, and I said to myself, nobody in the world knows me like this. There is no way. My mother doesn't even know me like this. How in the world can 39 questions, my response to 39 questions, create a profile of me, most of which I've been trying to hide from everybody as long as I could live? So I said that only to say that is that powerful. You should know that that's how you are. Now, remember, the course that I was taking was called creation therapy. So in other words, the results that I got from that particular assessment was how God fashioned me. And there's certain areas that with the way He fashioned me, I'm like, wow, I know that's me. My mother doesn't know me that well, but I don't think that's good. So the professor gave us to understand that there is nothing about this that's wrong. That's who you are. That's how God fashioned you. So the question is, how do you use who you are to God's glory and to mankind's benefit? And I began to see that. So months or so after that, I began to acknowledge the fact, okay, fine, that's who you are, Eastman. When I have certain tendencies I would have, how do I use this effectively? And that's the important thing. So overall, my theme for Buckner Life Coaching is, what is strong with you? Because we spend too much time trying to figure out what's wrong. And people tell us all the time that you need to work on this, you need to work on that. Listen to me. Stop working on alleged weaknesses. Stop working on those at all. when it comes to certain aspects of your life, you work your strength and you staff or find some device to compensate for your alleged weaknesses. If you are like me and spelling is a horrible thing for you, then that's why they invented spell check. Now they got Grammarly, they got all kind of stuff. You don't even have to learn how to spell now. But my point was, I've always had this as a problem, right? I've had it as a problem because I was born with dyslexia. It was extremely difficult for me to read all through school. I was the slowest reader on earth, and I'm probably still the slowest reader on earth, but I'm constantly reading. But my point was that I had to compensate for that. As a matter of fact, so I had been ordained as an elder on the particular denomination, which I'm no longer in. So I was associate minister there for quite a while, preached at numerous churches as associate pastor, associate ministers. But one of the things that always impressed me about fellow ministers and most lay people is that they can recall scripture like nothing's to it. Oh, yeah, John this and that and this and that. I'm like, I can't do that. I can't do that. Never could. And I'll never forget, I was at some particular event, and this gentleman said, Minister Buckner, you know what so-and-so, what verse, some verse, he said, let's say James 3:18 says. And I said, no, I don't, but if you tell me what it is, I can explain it. That's all I could do. I had no idea what was at that verse. Now, if you read it to me, if you started reading, I could probably finish it. But I have no association to numbers. So that's very difficult. Same way with phone numbers. I'm dyslexic when it comes to numbers and words. So it's difficult for me to remember numbers because I transpose them. If you give me your phone number, slow down, do it one at a time, and then do it 3 more times and let me write it down, because you're wasting your time just trying to tell it to me and expect me to remember it. So you would think that that's something I need to work on. Now, I used to try to work on it. I'll never forget, I purchased a book that would give me a method understanding how to memorize scripture and where they are in the Bible. I went through that book and it was horrible. And I just learned, okay, fine, that's just not who I am. I can't do that. Now, I still would love to do that, but if that's not me, that's not me. But what I do have, my claim to fame is this. People call me all the time to explain scripture. And I have an excellent memory. And my memory is crazy sometimes. So I'm very, very good. God has gifted me to be able to analyze scripture, break it down, tell people how it can be applicable to today. What is the historical context? I'm very good at that. But if they ask me where is so-and-so in the Bible, I probably can tell you what book it's in, but what verse it is in, I'm clueless. I might be close to the neighborhood of it, but I can't get it. So once again, that would tend to be a weakness, but it's not. It's just something that God didn't give me, and other people have it. Now, so I stopped being jealous or envious of people who can do that, because I know that, hey, that's nothing. I don't work on that anymore. But I do try to focus on making sure I still have an understanding of the scriptures when they're presented. So what am I saying? Again, you do not need to work on weaknesses, but you do need to work on your strengths. Turn your talents into strengths. So let me close with this. We talk about talents, but talents are not strengths until they are practiced with intention. So you have a talent. You practice that talent over time, intentionally practice that talent, then it becomes a strength. So the goal is to find out what your talents are. That's step one. Then accept those talents as real. Okay, fine. I accept that these are my talents. And then I find opportunities to use those talents intentionally towards a particular goal or mission or whatever, right? And if I do that over and over again, then they become strengths. And once they become strengths, I can now do that to near perfect performance every time. Once you turn a talent into a strength, then now you can operate that talent at near perfect performance every time. And that's the goal. Mastery. You want to be able to do that. So I am no different from you. You can reach mastery at that which you're gifted to do. All you have to do is find out what your talents are, use them with intention, and that's where coaching comes in at. And then they become strengths. And then you use those strengths in your daily life, your employment, your business endeavors, and you'll find that people will pay you very well for you just to be you. Forget about what's wrong with you. Focus on what's strong with you. Talk to you next time.